What's up, gamers? And I'm sure you want to know the best build for Anton, basically the KAFKA of ZZZ, because he is reproccing Grace's shock without even having to suckle on her toes. Besides that he is one of my favorite characters that you can run in the game, and I think he is very future-proofable to your account, and I think you as a free-to-play player should be building him. So we'll get into more of that at the end of the video. I think first we should start with a kit breakdown, and how we're going to do that. We're going to swap into a new shirt because my original video surely didn't get corrupted. Anyways, guys, hopefully you enjoy this little kit breakdown first. His additional team ability that basically allows him to, whenever he goes into burst mode, every single time you hit 4 critical hits, the next time you hit an enemy, it'll be retriggering the shock damage at 45% of his original damage, and it can activate every 0.5 seconds. This makes him very similar to Sampo, right? Because if we look at something like Sampo's E6, right? Well, he throws his little thing, and every time that hits the enemy is going to be reproccing wind shear on the enemy. That's basically the same thing that he does here, right? But the thing here is he really doesn't provide much shock to himself, so you need other allies to really help provide big, like, anomaly shocks on the enemy, and that's why I say this can kind of future-proof him, especially for other shock anomaly characters that come out in the future, because if we get someone stronger than Grace, we can just replace Grace on the team, have him on the team, and he can still reproc that ability. But like the additional ability says, guys, it's every 4th crit, so let's go ahead and talk about kind of his core passive now, because the core passive, while not only gives you a damage buff to his skill move, it's also going to be giving you a crit rate increase as well, 14.4% at the max level. So you might be wondering, what is that? How does it work? You need 4 crit moves? That seems like a lot. Well, with him, it's really not a lot. So let's go ahead and talk about his actual skills now, because firstly, his special, guys. His special allows him to go into burst mode, which makes him launch several attacks into the enemy, where you can see all the attacks he's hitting here on screen now. Basically, every time you see that blue number pop up on the screen, that is as many times as he is attacking. Now, let's go ahead and talk about the basic attack, because this skill enhances his basic attack. This allows you to constantly consume energy with his basic attack, do an enhanced version of it, so he's basically just doing this for every attack, right? So he'll be doing 2 attacks here, and then the 3rd attack will go into his burst drill attack, and then the 4th attack from there will do another burst drill attack as well. He is really a burst type DPS, so how you need to be playing him is when you have him on a team, which obviously in this case is Grace, you're going to be building up a shock anomaly on the enemy with Grace. So you're going to be attacking with her a couple times, throw a grenade out, attack with her a couple times, throw a grenade out. Then you're going to be using her EX skill, which increases the shock damage on the enemy by 18%, and that can be stacked up to 2 times. So after you get that shock proc off with her EX skill, you want to switch into Anton and then go into his burst combo, get as much damage out as possible in that time frame while the enemy is shocked, and he's still taking that large amount of shock damage, and then you swap back out and then rinse and repeat. That is how you play Anton. He is not meant to be out on the field all the time. You realistically want your Grace out on the field most of the time, doing the work, building up anomaly, and then have him come in and do burst damage for you whenever necessary. So in the grand scheme of things, guys, there will be a lot of swapping involved with him. You're going to want to make sure he is timed up correctly to make sure he's maximizing damage. If you're not maximizing these shock buffs that Grace is putting on the enemy, then his damage is going to drop drastically. The final thing here, guys, will be his chain attack, which what the chain attack is going to be doing is sending a big pile driver into the ground, right? Which also is going to be hitting the enemy multiple times, which means you want to be having his skill up before you activate this chain attack. You want to make sure you've used him at least 1 time, have his skill active and ready to go. That means there's no like little marker indicating that his skill can be activated. It should be a full bar glowing with the blue juice we call energy in this game. So you want to make sure that is up whenever you launch his chain attack and ultimate move, if you plan to use the ultimate with him, which honestly you probably would want to use it with him just so you can get some more burst shock damage out with him. So with that being said, those are actually the 3 things that I recommend leveling up, is his chain attack, basic attack, and special attack. And just like that, gamers, we've switched into our Yang Ching t-shirt, and we're now ready to talk about what his best in slot W engines are. Starting off with his best in slot, that's going to be the S rank Brimstone. Upon hitting an enemy with a basic attack, dash attack, or dodge counter, you get an increased attack stack buff for 8 seconds, and this stacks up to 8 times. Now, the reason why this W engine is super good, guys, is because you are getting attack stacks basically for free just from using his basic attack. Now, this does require you to play him in a certain way, right? Because this completely relies on you building up this attack stat, right? So you're going to be having to do a lot of basic attacks, and then you'll be wanting to use your ultimate attack at the very end of this combo, so you make sure you have max attack stat. On top of this is giving you a guaranteed 30% attack bonus just overall. Right now, this is not the only W engine you can run, because the other option you could run would be Drill Rig Red Axis, is because whenever you launch an EX special or chain attack, which is usually when you're going to use them off of a chain attack, right? You'll be getting increased electric damage from his basic attack and his dash attack as as well, and this is going to be lasting for 10 seconds as a 15-second cooldown. And the really big thing here too is it has a 50% energy regeneration rate, just as the main stat on this W engine here. So this means it's going to be really beneficial for keeping his energy up so he can stay in his enhanced state for longer. This is really just subjective for Anton. You really wouldn't use this outside of Anton because the buff only comes once every 15 seconds, so you have to make sure you're using this only in burst type scenarios. And if you already have enough energy regen rate built into him, or if you feel his energy regen rate's enough, probably don't want to run this, right? Like, the energy regen here is the really big thing, so you can keep him in a state. If your energy regen's nice, say you wanted to build him energy regen for some reason, which we'll talk about builds and stats later on in the video, maybe don't necessarily run this W engine here because it won't net you the most overall damage. If we're talking the best A rank W engine for damage purposes only, that's actually going to be the A rank Street Superstar, but you can actually craft for completely free from the shop. Now guys, why this one's going to be so big is because first of all, 25% attack buff, so it's very similar to the base attack buff that the S rank Brimstone gives you, as we mentioned before. But not only this, guys, whenever a squad member launches a chain attack, the equipper will be getting a charge stack that can stack up to 3 times. Upon activating the ultimate, the equipper will consume all charge stacks and increase the skill's damage by a certain percentage, 24% if you're at the absolute maximum. This means whenever you break the enemy's daze meter and you start those chain attacks off, 1 chain attack, oh look at that, that's 1 stack, another chain attack, oh that's 2, oh, and then finally your last one's coming out now for a final chain attack, that's 3 chain attacks there. So this means this is at max stack already and ready to be unleashed whenever you use your ultimate with Anton, because that's realistically who you should be using your ultimate with on the team, because Anton just cracked with the ultimate like that. So in my opinion, those are the 3 best W engines you can run here. Obviously you can run Starlight engine, that can work. You can run the BPW engine as well, that also works too. Now gamers, let's go ahead and talk about the part you've been waiting for, the best in slot disk drives. But before we talk about that, go ahead and hit that subscribe button now, gamers. I would much appreciate it. Now I don't know why I did that little lean back there like that, like I was gonna say something cool. I'm actually not. Yangqing for the win. I'm saving you guys. I know this is not Honkai style rail, but I will save you guys from all of your bad summons if you subscribe to the channel right now. So let's go ahead and talk about his best 4-piece set, guys. That's going to be the 4-piece Thunder Metal, because this is going to be giving you a 10% electric damage buff, and on top of this, when the enemies are shocked, you'll be getting a 28% attack bonus as well. The reason why this is the best in slot is because first of all, electric damage, his whole kit scales off of electric damage, obviously. Second off, he is getting a 28% attack buff based off of shocked enemies. And the reason why that's good is because that's realistically the only time you should be using this, right? When the enemy is shocked. He's a very burst heavy type of DPS. He can do insane amounts of damage while in those small little bursts. Now, if we're talking about what are you farming this with, you're actually farming this with one of the best sets in the game, and that's going to be Shockstar Disco, because this is the impact set. This is the break set. This is what you're going to be farming for, aka Miss Caesar King. If you're pulling for Caesar King, you are probably going to be farming for this set for her anyways. So getting some of these Thunder Metal sets is actually going to be very beneficial for your Anton as well. If you have this on a team with Grace too, you can run Grace, Caesar King, and then Anton as well. And you kind of have the whole team kind of built out already, right? Because you have the Shockstar Disco, you have this. Now, obviously, for Miss Grace, you'd have to have another build, which we do have a build guide up for her on the channel already. So make sure you check that out if you haven't already and you do have a Grace and want to know how to build her. Now, another 4-piece that you could run, which I really don't recommend farming, is a 4-piece Puffer Electro. Your damage actually falls off quite a bit with this. This is really going to be increasing his pin ratio, increasing the ultimate damage by 20%, and then also increasing his attack by 20%. Now, looking at the set on paper, it might seem this is the best set because he's using his burst. But the big problem with this set is normally you're holding off on your ultimate moves until you break the enemy, right? So let's say you're getting your ultimate move off and having to hold off on it until like the enemy's broken. You're losing a lot of DPS with this set. Now, if you have a team that's really effective at breaking the enemy, and let's say you can get the enemy broken, then you get your ultimate back up every single time, right? You have the ult back up every single time the enemy gets broken, and you're not really having to have too much downtime or holding that ult for too long, right? Then this probably would be the best in slot set. Like for real, it gives you 20% ultimate damage increase and a attack increase as well. With pin rate, this is just overall a really good set if you can meet that criteria. Now, if you're not able to meet that criteria, don't really recommend this set as the first best in slot set. And also, guys, you're gonna have to farm this with the Inferno Metal set. I mean, Soldier 11 uses Inferno Metal, so if you have her, then maybe you're farming something good there. But overall, like, we don't have like really any top tier fire damage characters right now, or really a lot of characters that can take use of really either of these sets right now, because these are very burst heavy sets here. So with them not being able to be taken that much use of right now, can't really recommend farming this setup too much. But now, gamers, let's go ahead and talk about the best 2-piece slot and sets you can get here. Woodpecker Electro. That's the best in slot. It gives them 8% crit rate. This is the best 2-piece in slot for most DPS in the game just because of the free 8% crit rate it gives. That's a huge amount of crit rate just for running a 2-piece set. Hands down, would recommend this. This is by far the best in slot. Yeah, you don't really need to farm this setup at all either. I would recommend just going to the Bardic shop and just spending all of your little reels there because some of these sets are actually much more valuable to farm. That's really all I can recommend as far as the best in slot disk drives go. Let's go ahead and talk about some of those main and subsets now, and then we'll talk about teams and how he can future-proof and why you as a free-to-play player should be building him. Alright guys, so first things first, on disc number 4, you're going to be wanting to aim for crit rate. You can get crit damage here, but it really just depends on if you can get your crit rate in check because crit rate is super important for him. Disc number 5 is going to be electric damage percentage because everything is going to be scaling off of electric damage percentage. You can also aim for attack here as well. You just want to make sure you're not overloading him with attack because a lot of the things that we've given him today, like best W engines and stuff like that, give him a lot of attack. So really aiming for electric damage here is going to be really beneficial for him. And then on this 6, guys, is going to be attack percentage, okay? I think that is just hands down the best way that you can go with building him as far as these main sets go. As far as those subsets, though, guys, crit rate, crit damage, attack percentage, pin, or just base attack here, guys. With a focus on getting at least 2300 attack, crit rate is going to be needing to be at least 70%, guys. I wouldn't go anywhere below 70% here. And then finally, for the crit damage, I would aim for at least 120 here. Crit rate on him is much more important than crit damage in my opinion, so that is what you should absolutely be aiming for when building him up, guys. Please, 70% crit rate or you will see some pretty large DPS losses, right? Every time he doesn't crit, that's every time that he is not going to be reprocking the shock on the enemy, which is where he's getting a lot of his damage from. Now let's go ahead and talk about his best in slot teams. Obviously, like I mentioned before, guys, in the game right now, Grace is going to be his best in slot companion. She just gives so much shock on the enemy. Like, she's able to build it up super quick. So the more you're able to build up shock, the more you're able to bring him out in the field and use his burst type damage. Another good option here is going to be Rena. She extends the time that the shock is on the enemy for, and then also she'll be increasing your pin ratio as well, and then increasing electric damage too. So overall, this is probably the best in slot team for him right now, which is Anton, Grace, and Rena. Now, I don't have my Rena built, and I don't use him this way. I normally use him with a Grace and an Anby. This can work. She provides some extra breaking to the team, or you can all tend to use Seth on the team as well, because Seth will be increasing anomaly proficiency, which then helps Grace out with her damage. If Grace's damage with shock is higher, that means Anton's damage with the reprocs are going to be higher, so Seth can work here as well. I want to talk about some future options though, because I did mention he would be future-proofable. He is going to be future-proofable for any anomaly electric type DPS that's coming to the game, and what do you know, we're already getting one of those added into the game in the next patch, guys. Miss Yanagi is another shock type anomaly character, so maybe you could run a full team of anomaly here if she is like a buffer, right? This is only really if she's a buffer to the anomaly class. She can come in clutch for this team, really buff up Grace's damage, and then also probably buff up his damage as well with just normal hits, and then the reprocs will be even higher as well. So I think Yanagi could be a decent option on this team. Now, if Yanagi comes out and is just like Anton, then that would be basically a direct power creep to Anton, but I don't think she would just do that. I think she would buff as well, which is why I think you would probably still run them both on the team. If you're able to get some good shock procs off with either Yanagi or even Grace at the same time, or get them off separately, she's able to reproc some, then he comes in and does his big damage to reproc a lot, then I think that could also work out very well too. But overall, guys, he's going to work with just about any electric anomaly character coming to the game because he can reproc. Now, if you don't have any electric type characters on the team, then maybe this is not the option for you. If you don't plan for pulling Yanagi, if you don't plan on building Grace, if you don't have her already on your account, then maybe this is not the best build for you. The reason why I think you should build him as a free-to-play is the future-proof ability, right? He is literally, just look at his kit. He is reprocking shock anomaly. So that means the stronger shock anomaly characters we get, the stronger he becomes theoretically, right? So this is why I think you should build him, guys. I think he's going to future-proof your account, especially if you plan on playing with Anomaly, which it seems like they're building up towards that anyways, and we've kind of got a lot of support towards that. We have Seth now, which is another shock type character that increases Anomaly. We have Yanagi coming to the game. We also have Grace in the game, which is already amazing. So I think all of these factors can play into why I think you should be building him. Outside of that though, is he worth building? Probably not if you don't have a shock team. I'll just be completely honest with you and upfront with you. You shouldn't build them if you don't have a shock team. Anyways, guys, that's going to do it for today's video. Hopefully you enjoyed. Make sure you hit the subscribe button, and yeah, that's gonna do it. See you guys later. Tell me what your thoughts are on Anton. Have you built him yet? Do you plan on building him? What do you think of him? Anyways, guys, that's gonna do it, guys. Bye bye. See you later.